Yan. Sorry. Good afternoon, Evan Jacob. Ayan, dahil nagkaroon kami ng internet problem kanina. Ayan, i-discuss ko na lang dito sa video na to yung lesson natin sa araw na ito. Okay? And last week we studied about what is communication, the nature of communication, what are the elements of communication, and the process of communication. And after that, we are going to discuss the communication models. Okay, next slide. Okay, in this lesson we have two objectives. Number one, differentiates the various models of communication, and number two, explains the different communication models. These objectives will is the aim of this lesson. After this discussion, you will be able to differentiate the different models of communication, and you will be able to explain the different communication models. Okay, next. Yan. What do you think is that picture? What are your thoughts about that picture? Okay, syempre, hindi niyo ako masasagot dahil wala naman kayo dito. So, ayan, what are your thoughts? So, this picture represents a model without a label. Ayan. Okay po. Model yan or pwede maging flowchart, maging representation ng isang bagay without label. Okay. In this lesson po, communication models has 4 different models po. Before that, I will discuss first what is communication model. Communication model, it can describe how communication happens and how it functions inside the society. Also, the models of communication will help you to understand the complexity and simplicity of communication situation. Complexity, it means the ability of being complex. Ano po ba ang complex? Complex is complicated and interrelated parts po. Yun po ang ayun po ang definition niya. So, sa communication, there is no perfect communication, kaya complex po siya. Mayroong complicated na pangyayari sa loob ng communication. And may ma-encounter pong problem, gaya po ng mga barriers at mga noise. Okay, also po, according to Tandok 2016, by analyzing these models, you can get a guide on how to communicate effectively with other people. Also, the communication model will give you a style or techniques on how to communicate with other people effectively. Okay, sana naintindihan nyo yung what is communication models and how it will help you. Okay, yan po. We have 4 different models of communication. First one is the linear model. Okay, what is linear model? Ayan, this is the figure of linear model of communication or the illustration. There are 3 characters po o components po: sender, channel, and receiver. Okay, what is linear model of communication? It is the most basic and the simplest model of all. Ayan po yung pinaka-simple at pinaka-basic na model doon sa 4 na babanggitin ko ngayon. Okay po, in linear model of communication, it is a one-way process of communication po. The sender only sends the message and the receiver only receives the message po. There is no feedback dito po sa linear model because it is only one-way communication process. Okay, next po. The second model of communication is called transactional model. What is transactional model? Ayan po yung illustration. As you can see po, the sender nilagyan ko po siya ng slash receiver because in this model, the sender can be the receiver while the receiver can be the sender also, or vice versa. They are reversing their roles inside the communication. Okay, as you can see also, the arrow is sa magkabilaan po, meron silang parehas na paganon na paganto po. Paganyan. Tama pala. Ayun po, may paganon po sila parehas. Ibig sabihin po noon ay the sender and the receiver are known as the communicators of the communication. They can reverse their roles each time inside the communication. Paano pong magre-reverse? Dahil magpapalitan po sila ng information, they are papalitan sila ng messages. So, kapag ang sender nakapag-send na ng message at na-receive na ng receiver ang message, the receiver can send also a message to the sender. Kaya doon po yung way na nagpapalitan po sila. Okay po, next po. It is mostly used for interpersonal communication. Okay, transactional model of communication, it can be used for interpersonal communication. What is interpersonal communication? It is the process of communicating with two or more people or with other people po. Okay. And lastly po, transactional model of communication, it is called circular model of communication. Dahil nagpapalitan lang ng information o ng message yung sender at receiver, so iikot lang ng iikot yan. Magpapalitan lang sila na magpapalitan, babalik ulit, palitan ulit ng palitan. Okay, understood po. Dahil di naman po masasagot yung tanong ko na kung naintindihan nyo, I will go on to the next. Ayan po, the third excuse me. Okay, the third model is called interactive model. Okay, this is the illustration of interactive model. As you can see po, it has two arrows na pinaghiwalay po. Hindi po katulad kanina na nasa isang araw lang po pero dalawa po yung nasa dulo. Pero ito po, two individual arrows po. Ayan, the sender will send the message into the receiver. Pwede pong magbaliktad, and the sender will receive also to the a message to the receiver. Okay. This model po is very much alike with the transactional model of communication because they are both two-way communication process or two-way communication model. Also po, like transactional model of communication, it has feedback po. Also, ito din po may feedback, but the feedback is slower in turns, slower than the transactional model of communication. Mas mabagal daw po ang feedback sa interactive kesa sa transactional model of communication. Okay. And lastly po, last na model of communication is Shannon-Weaver model of communication. Okay. Sino ba si Shannon-Weaver? Ay, si Shannon at si Weaver. Ayan, si Claude Elwood po, Shannon, and Warren Weaver po, they wrote an article about mathematical theory in communication po sa isang journal po sa Amerika. Yan po. Yun po yung kaya po doon nagsimula po itong Shannon-Weaver model of communication. Okay, what is Shannon-Weaver model of communication? Okay, ayan po yung illustration, but before explaining that illustration or the model, I will define po muna ang Shannon-Weaver. Ayan po, Shannon-Weaver model of communication is the mother of all the models. Kahit nung college po ako, mas madami kaming napag-aralang model of communication, hindi lang linear, hindi lang interactive, hindi lang transactional. Pero etong Shannon-Weaver na pag-aralan namin dati, ito din po ang sinasabing mother of all models. Kaya kung may malaman man kayong ibang model of communication, ang Shannon-Weaver ang mother of all that models. Okay, next po. Shannon-Weaver model of communication, it is more technological than other linear models po. Ang kagaya po ng linear model of communication kanina, the first model I have discussed, it hindi po technological yon, yung linear model na po yon. Pero ang Shannon-Weaver po, it is a linear model po na technological. Okay, yan po. Babasahin ko muna. The sender encodes the message and send it to the receiver. Ito po yung mga nangyayari inside the Shannon-Weaver communication model. Okay, excuse lang. Okay, ayan. Ang nangyayari po doon inside the Shannon-Weaver model of communication, the sender encodes the message and send it to the receiver through a technological channel like telephone and telegraph. Also po, the sender converts the message into codes understandable to the machine. The message is sent in codes through a medium. The receiver has to decode the message before understanding it and interpreting it. The receptor machine can also act as a decoder in some cases. And last, the channel can have noise and the receiver might not have the capacity to decode, which might cause problems in communication process. Okay, I will explain it to you po. Yan. Sa model na po ito, kunyari ako po yung sender at in-encode ko po yung message na isi-send ko sa inyo. So, I created those ideas and information po, kumuha ko sa Google. So, I encoded those information into handouts and PowerPoint. Ayun po, in-encode ko na. So, isi-send ko po those handouts and PowerPoints using laptop and Google Classroom po. Ayun po yung technological channel na ginamit ko or transmitter. So, after that po, ang mas consider po nating codes and signal po doon sa gagawin ko ay yun po, ipopost ko na po ang lesson. So, ang nilagay ko po doon na code o ang kinonsider kong code or signal na ibibigay ko doon sa na dapat ma-understand ng machine o ng computer is yung okay, nilagay ko schedule. Ipopost to sa 11 Jacob ng 3 p.m. So, ayun po yung nilagay kong code or signal doon sa machine. So, naintindihan nyo ng machine na kailangan ma-post ng oras na yon at ng araw na yon. After that po, after ma-send po nun, yun na po yung marireceive nyo. So, as the receiver po, you need to decode the message before understanding it and interpreting the message I've already sent. Ito po, nakalagay po, the receptor machine can also act as a decoder in some cases. Hindi po ito always nangyayari sa Shannon-Weaver model of communication. And also po, kung as you can see po, in that model po, there is a small square po. It is considered as the noise between or the noise that affects the flow of communication dito sa Shannon-Weaver model of communication. Ayan yung information source ako. So, yung message ko, ayun nga, itong communication model. Tapos, yung transmitter na ginamit ko or yung facility para masend ko yung message is laptop and Google Classroom. Tapos, yung signal ko, ayun yung signal or codes, yun yung ma-understand ng computer. So, ang nilagay ko po doon na dapat ma-post to ng within this day or ng 3 p.m. na ngayong araw. So, yun, hindi nyo naman agad ma-receive yun kasi it has the possibility na magkaroon kayo ng internet problem po. So, pag naka-experience kayo ng problem, marireceive nyo pa rin po yung message na ipinadala ko at makapupunta po ito sa destination. Sino ba yung destination ng message na ito? Kayo po. Okay? Kayo po ang destination. Kaya ang receiver, yan magiging ay papunta sa destination at kayo din po iyon. Okay po? Clear po tayo doon. Okay, dahil hindi na nga ako masasagot. Ayan, nakalagay dito sa last. Give one situation that will show one of these models. Okay, ako na lang magbibigay. Sa linear, pwede po dyan na, pwede pong example dyan po yung SONA ni Duterte. Dahil siya po yung speaker at yung channel po doon, yung ang ginagawa niya pong facility para ma-receive yun or ma-send ni Duterte yun ay ang TV. Tapos po, kayong receiver, magre-receive lang po kayo ng message without any feedback. Okay, next naman po sa transactional model po. Pwede pong example, ang nakikipagkwentuhan po kayo sa kaibigan nyo ng about sa kahit saang gusto nyong pagkwentuhan dahil nagpapalitan lang kayo ng kwento-kwento. Siya naman yung magkukwento, mamaya magre-react ka. Ngayon, ikaw naman yung magkikwento. Tapos, next time, siya naman yung magre-react. Okay, for interactive naman po, yun sa interactive, ang binigay na example ng mga students ko about dun, yung sa walkie-talkie. Kasi, kailangan mo pang patapusin na magsalita yung tao, hihintayin mo na maintindihan mo dahil nga sa walkie-talkie hindi ka basta-basta makakapagsalita agad-agad kasi 'di ba may pinipindot pa doon para marinig ka nung nasa kabilang linya. Tapos doon naman sa Shannon Fever, ang binigay na example naman ng mga students ko doon ay yung sa botohan, yung sa machine. Ayun, doon sa binigay niyang example doon, ayun, may receptor. Kasi yung receptor, yung machine, also kasi yung receptor o yung machine, it can be the decoder or the receiver of the message. Doon sa botohan, 'di ba pinapasok lang yung paper doon sa machine. Tapos yung machine na yung bahalang mag-encode ng mga binoto, maglista kung ilan yung bilang ng kandidatong ito. Ganun po. Okay, also, ano pa ba? Ayun lang po, kung may hindi po kayo naintindihan about this lesson, just message me po dahil alam ko super bilis lang po ng discussion ko na ito dahil malaki po ang magiging um, ang file na to. Okay, I hope you learned something about our discussion about models of communication. Okay, thank you for listening, 11 Jacob. See you next week. God bless.